Hi everyone, and welcome back to SwitchUp, and to probably our favourite news series, which is about the most interesting games we've been playing. So we're going to look at 6 games across a random variety of genres and discuss them, really. If you fancy picking up any games on your Switch, do save 10% over on our website using code SwitchUp at switchup.gg.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as Mark said, we've picked 3 games each, games that either released recently or have been out for a while, just games that basically we want to talk about. So, on that note then, which games have we picked? Well, let's find out.
Good stuff, Glen. Alright, so starting us off then, we've got a game called Omori, which is very famous. And you described it as being a bit like Earthbound, but I've never played Earthbound, so what's that all about?
Yeah, from what I've seen of it, I haven't played Omori, but it's got that kind of urban setting, an RPG with an urban setting that was kind of showcased, I suppose, brought to light via Earthbound back in the day, you know?
Yeah, so it's an old school, I guess, RPG, top-down view. It's split between a character's inner world, I guess, in a dream world, where they play as Omori, which is like an alter ego.
Right.
And the real world, where their life is, they're basically a recluse. Now, their name's Sunny in the real world. And I've never heard of this before. I think it's a Japanese word essentially for someone that's socially withdrawn, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but you might have heard of it. It's called a hikikomori boy. Have you heard of that? Hikikomori. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, but essentially it's that they have their own word for it. Like encapsulates a recluse, someone with anxiety, like all of the things that the game touches upon. That's what this word means. But yeah, it's split between the real and the alter world, or his dream world, and it's got a really strange combat system. Did I show you it with the emotions?
Yes, you did. Yeah, you have like your 4 characters' faces around the side of the screen, and their emotions change. Is that right? Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's like, it's a bit almost like rock paper scissors, and then one other.
Right.
You know, you've got one emotion kind of counters another, but you can. And I've not quite got to grips with it yet, but you can change the emotions of your enemies as well.
Oh, okay. I see. Yep.
Yeah, so you might fight one that's like enraged and he's, attacking all the time, but you can then make him sad. It's very odd. I think it's going to take a while to fully understand it and be able to utilize it. And you seem to be able to make a player do a move a second time as well. And I don't know whether that's kind of designed so that you would like make them sad and then have the player that can do the most damage against sadness go again.
Right, yeah.
But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's very unusual, and it's a bit unnerving. I don't really like scary things, as you know.
I heard my only real experience with this one, other than you showing me some of it, was putting it in our upcoming game series, and I did read that it was widely praised for the way that it dealt with mental health issues and portrayed them within the game, and you've obviously just touched upon the use of feelings and emotions, and the fact that you have that alternate world as well. So is that, I take it, a strong part of the story? Yeah,
I think, let's be honest, we've seen these themes come up in a lot of games maybe in the last 5-10 years more than ever.
Yeah.
Things like Celeste, that whole thing about traversing the mountains is actually to do with a lot of these same themes. Sometimes it's a little bit, as you would say, on the nose. Here, I don't think it is. I think it's quite subtle. It's quite well done, and it kind of leads the player to discover those feelings without saying, this is the feeling.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
For a good example is, I hope it's not a big spoiler. Early on, you kind of wake up in your house, and there's like the voice of your mother kind of telling you to do certain things. And all you really want to do is go downstairs and get a snack. But as you're walking down, suddenly, like, he looks down into the darkness of the front room, and we all remember that feeling as a kid, and he doesn't want to go any further.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you're walking down the stairs, like out of the darkness, you can see like hands and stuff. It's very cool, and it's a bit too scary for me, but it's nice.
I think that's quite a. I watch a lot of horror, as you know, and I've watched a fair bit of Japanese horror or Asian horror, but a few Japanese films specifically. Yeah. And the way that they deal with such themes is very subtle compared to the West. There's a film called I think Pulse is the one I'm thinking of, where there's been an American remake, And there's one particular scene where it's a very, very creepy scene of something happening. And in the remake, the Western remake, they showed it happening. And it, you know, without saying too much more than that, the difference between the two is so stark, yet the original was so much creepier for not going explicit, you know?
Exactly right. I mean, you said it last week when you said that a good horror does loads, but without looking like it is, to scare the player.
Absolutely. It makes the person do the work, doesn't it, you know?
Exactly right. So yeah, this is one that I'm really enjoying at the moment, actually, but I do need to play a lot more before I could give a definitive verdict on it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, my first game then, very different in tone to that one. A new game out, actually. It's called Spidersaurs. Spidersaurs, yeah. And it's a run and gun by WayForward.
Okay.
And it's actually from the team within WayForward that developed Contra 4, which was on the DS many years ago now. Now, I'm a big run and gun fan, as you know, and I was looking forward to this one. And whilst it is a good game, I do have quite a few issues with it that I do want to kind of bring up and discuss. But I will start with a few positives. And the first one is that the game very much goes for like a Saturday morning cartoon feel, and it gets it spot on. Like the opening intro, the opening cutscene, if you like, it could quite easily have been the theme song to a 1990s kids cartoon. Nice. It really does get it right. Do you remember things like the Hurricanes? Do you remember that show about football? Yeah,
Storm Time's coming to you.
Yeah, you can honestly, it just feels like that. You feel like you're back in the 90s watching a cartoon. So it gets that bit right. But what it doesn't quite get right, and the general action is fine, you know, the running and gunning is okay. Yeah. But what it doesn't quite get right, and I'm surprised, bearing in mind, you know, the pedigree behind it, is it, for me, run and guns, good run and guns, the best run and guns, they rely on two things. Yeah. One of which is very much down to the player, and that's your reaction time. But the other one is kind of 50-50 between the game and yourself as the player, and that's a good appreciation for spatial awareness. Right. And whereas you as the player can fulfill your side of that in this game, the game doesn't. And because of that, you get lots of cheap deaths, you know? Yeah, so I was going to ask actually, what's the difference then? Say Contra 4, which this team worked on, right? Yeah. What's the difference there between the two in that regard? Well, the main difference is that, so I alluded to spatial awareness just then. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that there will be certain times within a run and gun where there'll be bullets everywhere. Yeah. You'll have enemies flying at you from every which way. And it's very much about knowing where you can stand, the trajectory of what's coming towards you, your hitboxes, you know, where you can get away with things, where you can't. And good run and guns understand that and do it to perfection. Right. Now, you can brute force run and guns. You know, if you put enough money into Metal Slug at the arcade, you could finish the game in half an hour. But if you want to do it properly, you want to do it well, you had to understand that. Right. And this game, you'll have times where, first of all, the enemies take way too many hits, and that's always a bugbear of mine. It might not bother some people as much, but for me, it's not about the enemies, that they're irrelevant. You know, throw lots of them at you, but make them die with one hit. That's the point for me, is you keep moving, nice and fast, nice and slick. This doesn't do that, but that's one thing. I could have overlooked that. But then you'll have times where there are a large amount of platforming sections, and in any one time, you could have platforms that crumble when you stand on them. You could have enemies that take way too many hits to die as they're coming towards you. You can have enemies that apparate, if that's a real word. Sounds awesome. Might be a Harry Potterism, I'm not sure, but just appear behind you at any moment and kill you. And that's so ridiculously unfair. You know, generally, if you have something like that, you know, like appearing enemies, first of all, they won't appear literally. I'm talking about behind you, not next to you. Like, appear, you lose health. But if you're going to do that, then surely you have like an exclamation mark and then a 2-second gap, and then it appears. So you know as a player, something's not quite right here, I need to get out of the way. Doesn't do that at all. And then you'll have things like whole objects will fall from the screen, from the top of the screen, and just take out half the screen. So if you're not on the right side of the screen, you'll get hit, and there is no way of avoiding it. So it's a first time player's trap, you know?
That's not cool.
It's not cool. I mean, it's one of these things. If this were a review, this game would probably end up getting, I haven't played enough to officially review it, but if I had, I would guess it would get about 60%. Now, I know that sounds quite high based on what I've just said, But sometimes you'll agree with me here, Mark, I'm sure. In a review, you have to highlight negatives quite extensively, because for some people they will 100% ruin the game. And it does sound quite uneven in terms of how positive or negative you've been, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not that you're panning the game necessarily, it's just that the negatives must be explained so that the potential buyer has enough information to make a good choice. I think that's what a good review does.
Yeah.
So whilst it might sound uneven in terms of positives and negatives, actually it's not that. It's just the positives are fine. You know, it does this, it does it well. However, these things it doesn't do well, and they may well spoil it for you if you're not prepared for them. So here they are in detail, you know?
Exactly right. Yeah. No, I do know exactly. That's basically been the last few reviews I've written for the channel.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it looks way better than than some of the silly mistakes they've made. But yeah, I'm glad you had your chance to apparate.
I'm sure. Is that a word, or is that just, did Harry Potter make that up? Is that J.K. Rowling's invention? I don't know. But...
Yeah, just shortly after his Spectro Patronus.
Expecto Patronum, yeah, that's the other one, isn't it? I don't think I'd ever say that, but...
Oh, I actually got that wrong as well. All right, brilliant. Nice one, mate. Next up, we have got... Let me just press the button and get past the pictures the kids have drawn all over my work. Let's go for this one. So Glen did his upcoming games, as always. I think it was the week before this one just gone. And it had a game in it that really caught my eye. And it was called Gangsta Magic.
Oh, yeah. No, that was this week. Yeah.
Just the name. Absolute trash. So I saw it and I thought, hang on, that looks... it looked a bit like, I don't know, like the Matrix meets a parkour game or something. So I thought, all right, let's give this a bash. And interestingly, it does that whole 95% off thing.
Right.
And I've written here, 95% off. Yeah, right, exclamation mark. Like, well, how do you feel? There is a practice at the moment of pricing things very high just so they can put 95% off forever and it sells.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that what they've done? They've gone bang in at 95% off?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Oh, yeah. It might as well say at the bottom, for the foreseeable. Like,
do you know what? Just while you bring it up, I remember now, sorry to interrupt, mate, but when I was doing the pricing, because obviously we do the audio for these videos sometimes before we've seen things like the price, because we add those later when we make the video.
Yeah. And
this was double the price in the UK and Europe, I believe, that it was in America. Double the price. Like, what's that about?
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. So anyway, I forked up some hard-earned cash and spent about £1 on it, which I'm regretting. But it is a ridiculous game. Like, I don't know if you've heard of asset flip games.
Yeah.
So, of course you have, sorry. So, this is an asset flip to the nth degree. Basically, you play as Neo, right?
Yeah.
from the Matrix.
Yeah.
Not obviously official. If it was, like, heads would be rolling. But it's so strange. You've got several levels where you have 4 different magical abilities which spurt out of your hand. I say spurt because, well, you see on the footage. You can perform a spinning wheel kick, which weirdly,
yeah,
the animations are unbelievably good. Like, I don't know what's happening here. So I booted it up and I'm like, all right, let's do this. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's a spinning wheel kick, which is unreal slow, right? It's ludicrously slow.
Right.
But then you can, like, jump up and fly. It's basically Neo at the end of the Matrix. You can crouch down and do that boost jump into the air. You can fly around. But the animations for, like, all of these things are incredible. But I don't know what's happening. Well, actually, I think I do. There's the Unreal store. You can buy pre-made assets.
Right.
And there must be a pre-made animation pack for, like, Neo or something.
Right, okay.
Because he's flying around, I'm thinking, man, that's unbelievable. But unfortunately, he's essentially flying around in a shoebox. Like, the textures on the wall, as again you'll be seeing in the footage, are appalling. And then you've got these like pre-made little demon creatures that look a bit like your kids' action figure toys.
Right.
Some of them floating in the air, firing bolts at you that are just unavoidable. You got the creatures on the ground that can't move. They're basically like they can't move at all. But when you go close, you'll be wheel kicking the air, missing, like whiffing. Sorry, just whiffing past them. And Beth was looking over my Beth, my wife, was looking over my shoulder last night, going, "What on earth are you doing? What are you playing?" She just looked so disappointed. I've got no words, mate. You wait till you see it.
I saw, like you say, the upcoming. I think I even mentioned in there, why do devs bother giving their characters long hair when they can't animate it properly? Like, why would you do it to yourself? Like, you've got enough problems as it is, you know? Just give them a bald head and be done with it.
You've just hit probably the funniest part of the game.
Oh, yeah.
When you boost jump, the hair's got ragdoll physics.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm done. It is just hilarious. And do you know what? For £1, for the laughs I've got, you know, you do the maths. I mean, I know everyone says that the old gold seal of approval never meant what we think it means, but surely there has to be some vetting process, right?
As soon as you mention the word asset flip, I mean, that should be it, shouldn't it? It should be a thanks but no thanks,
Yeah.
you know. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, but...
Do you know what? I wouldn't actually put people off it. It's literally it gave me about an hour and a half of just solid laughter last night.
You're going to get a bunch of people buying it now just for that, aren't you?
Maybe. And if they do, you know, enjoy laughter while you play.
Oh dear. Right, my next one, this is a one that's been out a while actually. This is one I was playing back in the day. I had about 10 hours into it and then just, you know, stopped. It's called Little Dragon's Cafe.
Oh yeah.
Which, like I say, I'd played it for a little while. I loaded it up the other day, just, I don't know why, on a bit of a whim, you know, just saw it back on the shelf and fancied a go on it. And I hadn't played it since 2019, so it'd been a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I've put another, 5 hours in it since. And it is a game I do really enjoy, actually. It's a nice little game.
Yeah.
Very very quaint, got a lovely art style to it. Looks like it's been coloured in with like colouring pencils, you know?
Yeah.
And the basic premise is that you are either a boy or a girl. You choose one of those, and the other is a non-playable character. You're a brother and sister, and your mum has become ill and cannot run your business anymore, the family business of a cafe. And somewhere along the way, as I said, obviously I played this bit a few years ago now, so I can't remember exactly why, but you end up with a pet dragon. And it plays quite nicely into the game's mechanics in that you have to, as well as kind of doing your chores around the cafe and cooking recipes, serving people, obviously, all that caper, as well as all that, you feed the dragon, you can cook for the dragon, and it grows up as you go through the game.
Oh, nice.
And as it grows up, it can do things out in the open world that opens more of it up, like it can move boulders or destroy walls.
Oh, nice.
And then you can explore more, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a nice little way of dealing with those kind of invisible wall moments that some games have. And you go out and you look for ingredients for your recipes, and as I say, you explore, and you need to find fragments of recipes for new dishes as you go out. And obviously you'll eventually find enough fragments of one recipe for it to then be cookable for you to make the meal and add it to your menu, and you go on like that. And the story side of it, because obviously with these sort of games you can kind of just go about your business and do what you want, but the story side of it is that you'll get certain patrons come to the business and they'll stay, and you have to kind of meet certain requirements to make them happy, and then they'll leave and the story moves on, you know?
Yeah. So with like the weekly schedule, is it like, you know, it's days of the week and different things happen, different customers come, or is it how does that work?
No, in terms of kind of your day-to-day, it's quite generic from what I've seen, at least. In terms of, you'll have the same kind of character models come in and all the stuff. You have a day-night cycle. I can't remember if you have actual days, or whether it just goes through, you know, day-night. I can't remember. But what will happen is, so let's say you go out exploring for the day, you know that your cafe opens at 12 till 2, and it opens again at, I forget, like 7 till 9, I don't know. And you can be there, or you don't have to be, and your staff, and like I say, either your brother or sister will take care of it, but they might not do as good a job as you would have done, so you might not get as high a rating for that day. And it's kind of that risk reward of, do I go back and help, or do I stay out and explore and find more ingredients, you know?
definitely. I'd stay out in the world. I'd be more harm than good, to be fair, in the calf.
Yeah. It's a good game. It is very repetitive, and I know these games by their very nature can be, but this one maybe more so than others, because in something like a Story of Seasons, you can just spend the whole day out in the fields tilling crops. You don't really have that here. Like, you have a patch of land that crops grow in, but you don't really have to do anything to them other than just wait for them to be ready and then harvest them, you know?
Yeah.
You can put dragon manure on them, which is another it's delightful thought, that, isn't it? But that's another outcome, quite literally, of feeding your dragon, you know. But you know, it's just a nice little game. Like I say, the art style's lovely. I mean, performance is a bit iffy, I must say. There seems to be something about these open world farming games that frame pacing always seems to be an issue. I don't know what that is, but it always seems to be frame pacing, and pop up as well. Popping is pretty bad, but you know, whatever. You know, if you can look past all that, it's a nice, enjoyable game that I've been kind of playing with my daughter, watching on, and then we swap and she plays for a while and stuff. It's one of those games, you know.
Yeah, I think not only the frame pacing in this one, I believe the load times are a bit of a joke.
Well, yes, actually, because when I played it back in the day, I did remember the load times were pretty poor. I must say, playing it this time, they seem better. They're not great, but they do seem better. Generally, when you leave the house, there's a load screen, and that's the long one, longish one. But then when you're out and about, they're not too bad, whereas before they were pretty much everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So I do feel that has had a patch in the last few years.
All right, well, that's good to know. I'll stick that down on my list to have a look at.
Yeah, they're still there, don't get me wrong, but they do seem
funny
better.
Because a lot of the games, although they obviously everything looks different, most of them are made in the same engines, either Unity or Unreal. And they have like pre-compilers now, so that, you know, they compile their games. And for my thinking, a lot of the stuff that we see shouldn't be happening anymore. I've reviewed a few games in Unreal 4, and they're a joke. And I mean, I've got a review coming up tomorrow, which is going to make people's ears bleed, because I've just never seen performance like it, mate.
Yeah.
Oof. But yeah, by all accounts, I mean, I bought this one for my daughter physically, and I was really gutted because it came on a code in a box.
Yeah, you need to be careful with that.
And she'd never seen that before. She opened it up and was like, she was really upset. She was like, my game's missing. And I had to explain to her, not only do you not get a game, you don't get a manual.
Yeah, no, you do. Any game that came out, within a couple of years of a game coming out, generally these days on the Switch, they will re-release it as a code in a box. They flood the shelves these days. You need to be careful. There's a little code, not code, beg your pardon, a little message in the bottom right-hand corner of the box in orange that will say something like download code only, or words to that effect. So just be aware. Just keep an eye out for it.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to ask you next time for sure. All right. My last game then is one called Hand of Merlin, which was definitely a couple of weeks ago, maybe even more, on your upcoming games list. And it caught my eye, and I said to you, look, that looks amazing. And you said, no, that doesn't. But that's, different strokes for different folks. But it's very good. It's very, very good, actually, to the point where I'm actually a bit annoyed that I didn't originally review it, and I may do something. And I'm really glad we can talk about it now. So it's essentially, and this is where we get into those titles, and one of them that people don't like. So you've got a tactical turn-based strategy, you've got an RPG, you've got a choose-your-own-adventure book, and you've got a roguelite, all squished into one. But every single element there is done well. And to be honest, the one that's the most important here is, I don't actually think it's the tactical turn-based, which is fine. It's very good. It's the writing.
Okay.
So the writing in the book, essentially the story here is that Merlin was like frozen. He was unable to. He was like frozen in rock or something. Mm-hmm. He comes back. There's an impending apocalypse. He hires a group of mercenaries, like 3 of you, and you can choose different ones each run, and you unlock new ones. And then you go out into the world, and you've got paths like a lot of these roguelites. You've got 2 paths to choose from. One of them might be like a legendary difficulty. One might be normal.
Right.
And you gradually make your way through, and each path there'll be like a storybook pages, different scenarios. But what I thought was very good, and a really nice way of bringing some consistency and pre-planning to what otherwise these games have a lot of RNG, don't they? So what they've done is they've actually made it so that certain locations, for example Stonehenge, it will have you can plan for them because you'll know what will be there.
Okay, yep.
Which is a really nice touch. And it does make a real difference. The choose your own adventure kind of questions and things, like you might be a villager in trouble, all the standard fare. A deck of cards, again, I could have put card based in it. A deck of cards comes up, that's like your random pick, and then you shuffle them and choose your card to decide the outcome.
Okay, I see, yeah.
It's really well done. You go to, there's like full on RPG towns, and in a text way, you might say, I want to visit the blacksmith, and you can spend your coins in there. It has bits of lots of different games. It has things like the food system that you'd see in Banner of Saga, where you'd need an amount of food to be able to keep moving along your journey. But it doesn't seem too difficult to be able to get it. It's very well balanced from the 2 or 3 hours I've played so far.
So what do you, because obviously I'm not looking at footage at the minute, so I'm trying to visualise it. In my head at the minute, I've got like a world map where you choose your next location, and it will bring up where it is, difficulty level, types of enemies you'll encounter, and then you accept the quest. Yeah. Is that kind of what we're on for? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so like a branching tree. So every time you move, you're moving from one side of the map to the other. The aim is to get to the other side and defeat the big bad.
Oh, so you do move on the map. You actually...
Yeah, you're physically moving across the map with each decision you make, and each like you might be a battle. Sometimes it won't be a battle, but you can kind of tactically choose where to go based on the difficulty essentially of the next tile. But it won't always be a difficulty as a fight. It might be difficulty as a scenario, and then you're picking a random card. So there's a touch of randomness, but I haven't encountered anything that's made me think that was out of my control.
Yeah.
So far, everything has been within my control. The tactical turn-based segments are very skill-based, and I love that because, let's be honest, with 9 out of 10 roguelites, you're going to die multiple times.
Yeah.
I know it's almost intrinsic to the gameplay, but it does get a bit annoying. Aren't they so enjoyable because you can win? I've read somewhere that there's a psychological thing that, but I don't feel like that about a lot of roguelites.
I think it depends what element they take. General kind of dungeon crawling, roguelites. As you say, you go on a run and you expect that run to end. Kind of like playing Tetris, isn't it? At some point you're going to get a game over.
Yeah.
But games that choose to take elements from a roguelite and put it into a different sort of genre, I guess it just depends which parts they take. It could be procedural generation, couldn't it, for example? That sort of thing. It doesn't have to be that you expect to die at some point, necessarily.
No, you're right. I'm just thinking about Hades, actually, because that's all skill-based. And there's loads of videos on YouTube with one-run wins, just going on and just they're so good that they beat the game without taking damage.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So no, you are right there, actually. I guess that's maybe the sign of a good one. So I think out of the 3 games I've discussed, certainly this is the one that I would quite happily recommend. The prices and that I'm sure will be on the screen, but I would quite happily, just from the play so far, I can just tell I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this game. All right, what's your last one then?
Right, my last one, I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball as it goes, quite literally actually, because my last one is a game called, if I pronounce it right, Jikkyou Powerful Pro Baseball.
Bless you.
Yeah, so it's a baseball game, as the title implies. Now, I know nothing about baseball, never played it, never watched it, I don't know anything about it at all. And of course this is based on the Japanese baseball. I think is it the NPB? It would be, wouldn't it? Which is like the Nippon Pro Baseball or something like that. It's their licensed league. And I can't read Japanese, so obviously playing a game about a sport I don't know about in a language I can't read, it's as far out of your comfort zone as you can possibly get. But this is a series that has been running for a long time, and I'm gonna tell you a little story for a minute, and then maybe you'll understand why I bought this game. So
Go for it.
Way back in the 90s, I used to buy a Super Nintendo magazine called Super Play. I used to love that magazine. And at the back of this magazine, they used to have like a kind of like we do our monthly score roundup was very much inspired by this magazine. They used to have the scores that they'd given all the games, from alphabetical order all the way through. But they'd throw in the import games they reviewed too. And there were two import games that I always wanted to play. And one of them was, I think it was called Super Back to the Future 2, so obviously based on the movie Back to the Future, which looked fantastic but never came out in the West. Still to this day, I've never played it. And the other was the Super Famicom version, whichever one it was at that time, of this baseball series, just because it looks fantastic. It uses like little chibi characters, like a behind the character viewpoint when you're batting, and I just thought it looked great, despite the fact I knew nothing about baseball. And it's taken all these years for me to finally kind of take the plunge, but I bought one of the Switch versions, and it's brilliant. You know, once you can navigate some of the menus and just get to a match, just get to a game, it's so much fun. Such a good baseball game.
So where did you buy this from?
I picked it up from PlayAsia, imported it, and
do you know how much this sells for?
It's quite expensive. I think I paid 50 quid for it. I think it's not cheap. It's one of those games I always wanted. I bought a few games from PlayAsia. I'm very particular with buying games from there that I make sure they have English, but there are a few exceptions. I knew this didn't have English, but I was quite happy to take the punt and try my luck and see if I could get through it. And I will mention, actually, it's only fair that I do, that Paul over at SwitchUp, who used to be like a Switch specific channel, I think he's kind of branched out into other consoles or PC gaming now too, but he did do a video on this game years ago that I found by chance, actually, which translates some of the early menus just to give you a way in,
right?
Get past that daunting first screen, so I will link that in the top pin comment, because that's very helpful. So thank you to him for making that. It has like a career mode and a story mode, which I haven't tried. I don't know how accessible they'll be without a grasp of the language, whether they're picture based to an extent that you can get through or not, I don't know. But to be honest, I'm not bothered, because just playing the matches is so much fun that I'm quite happy to plod along and do that,
Yeah, it looks quite interesting, actually. Kind of reminds me of a Nintendo game.
Yeah, I mean, I always associated it with Nintendo because obviously it came out on the Famicom or Super Famicom, but it's actually from Konami. Like the Konami are the developers of it. It's a great game, really fun, very very enjoyable. But obviously it comes with that huge caveat, and it is a big caveat, that you have to be willing, if you're not a Japanese speaker and or reader, to get past that challenge of not understanding the language. I find that I can enough that it doesn't hamper my enjoyment, but I can appreciate that it does mean that a lot of the game is locked behind a wall that I'll never be able to pass, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, no, really fun game.
Nice. Yeah, that wall's changed now with Google. You can literally hold your phone up and it'll translate the whole page on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. And to be fair, again, I'm not talking about things like career modes, because that is probably different, but just in terms of a basic match, it's spelt out enough that you know that the first option in the menu is going to be continue. The last one's going to be save and quit. You know what I mean. Next one down is probably going to be your, I don't know what you'd call it in baseball, but like your substitution screen, if you like, where you can change your characters over and whatnot. Options maybe where you can change the number of innings. They play a bloody lot of innings in baseball, by the way, don't they? A lot of innings.
I haven't got a clue.
Bloody hell, mate. I was playing forever. I was like, this game.
It's crazy. Can you believe we did 1,000 hours of Japanese Monster Hunter translating using phones?
Yeah, I know. I've actually played, this is the third game on the Switch I've played in Japanese. I played The Secret of Mana Collection, or whatever it was called, the Mana Collection, before that got an English version.
Wow.
And obviously, Monster Hunter Generations with you. Double Cross it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's dedication for you.
That is dedication. Right, all right. That is the end then of our 6 games. As always, we spend a bit of time just looking through the comments and have a look at the games that you've played as well. Maybe let us know any that you found interesting out of this list. And just thanks for watching, really.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to pick any of these up, or anything else for that matter, we do have, obviously you can buy your eShop cards from our website, switchup.gg. We do have 10% off at this moment in time. We've managed to secure another month of it, so that's nice. And if you're interested in the baseball game, there's a link down there to PlayAsia as well. You use the link, use the code, and you get 5% off an order for that too.
Brilliant. Yeah. So all that's left to say is thanks to our patrons and to all of you. Check out one of these videos that's maybe on the screen. And for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya.